Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone to the Bears preseason post-game show. That's a tricky one to say. I'm here with Jordan, and Tyler Ellis should be joining us fairly quickly here. Jordan, how'd you enjoy the game?
This is no bullshit smile, although I'm like, you got me over here dancing in the background, jumping around, because it's back, baby. We have Bears football, and it's preseason. But guess what? I love a nice W. I love it. So
yes, you gotta love the W. The first string offense didn't do much. They had a couple of really outstanding pass catches one by Darnell Mooney and the other by Tarjay Sharp. But outside of that, the offense was a little lackluster, the first stringers, that is. And then the Bears' second stringers and third stringers really dominated the Kansas City Chiefs the rest of the way. Is that how you sort of look at things from an overview perspective before we start digging into the specifics?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I tend to believe that you're right. There were some struggles in the ones versus the ones. And I think that there's obviously some analysis and commentary that we're going to get into regarding that. But I also think, as much as it's preseason and don't believe everything you see, I do tend to believe that it's also always a good sign of the depth that a team has. I'm not saying that the Chiefs have no depth, but the reality is that they're an established franchise. They have their money invested in select players, and they have to kind of build it with toothpicks and bubble gum in the back end and hope that those star players don't get hurt. Where you see a feisty team where everybody's fighting to make the 53, prove your name, that's the Bears. They have depth built in. I think that's where you saw that second and third team really pushing out against Kansas City.
The Patrick Mahomes-led offense scored on their first series, kind of sliced and diced the Bears starters. For the most part, there were a lot of starters out there, but of course there were some, Roquan Smith being the most obvious one. But did you see anything concerning regarding that first series against the Patrick Mahomes well-oiled Kansas City Chiefs offense versus the Bears defense?
Yeah, the concern is always the reality that it's Patrick Mahomes. And I want everybody to remember that. He's a top 5 quarterback. He's premier. And some think he's been 1, 2, 3, but let's just put it this way. He's the tier 1. He's one of those guys. He gets paid 2. And yes, we wish that the defense would have found a way to stop him. But it's also Andy Reid's show. This is clockwork. They are not learning a new offense or a new defense. So this is established, and you're watching Patrick Mahomes out there make it look easy. He had one where I'm forgetting who was trying to chase him down, but they showed the replay on it, and he's looking at the linebacker and just throwing it to Kelsey. It's what you'd expect. So I'm not too shocked that they got chewed up a little bit by Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. One of the frustrating things is as you scroll through social media comments, I read one where Luke Getsy doesn't know how to call plays.
Yeah, that's funny.
And I'm like, okay. This team looks terrible. It's like, why are people so quick to jump the gun and make these statements that the world is coming to an end based on a preseason game? I'll never figure it out. But there were a lot of really nice things that happened with the Chicago Bears team. Why don't we start with a couple of the players that you really thought shined? Pick the offense or defense to start with, and then I'll track along.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously everybody's going to know Jack Sanborn was a name today that was really positive. I have so much to say about him, but I'm going to go a little off base here. Tevin Jenkins, how could I not? It was not beautiful or pretty at all times, but I think that there was still a lot of positive to see from Tevin Jenkins. I'll stop with one offense so that you have some people to pick from as well. On defense, honestly, to me, I'm going to go with, look, I'm going to be a homer. It's the guys I've been so high on since the beginning, Tevin Jenkins. And, of course, you know where I'm going on defense. It's Jaquan Brisker, baby. That is the guy.
Indeed. Brisker almost made a statement that I'm ready to compete for Rookie of the Year just based on what he did out there. He looks the role. He looks the role of a leader on the field, bringing that energy, as Nomad says, and making plays not only with his physical style but also just tracking the ball really well. He came very close to getting an interception, and so that is also something that we might see a lot of. What do you think? A half dozen interceptions for Brisker in his rookie year? I wouldn't be surprised.
Wouldn't that be nice? We'll see, but this is why I think you and I do so well together. Although, I take it from a little more analytical view. For anybody watching, I went deep dived into the Eberflus defense last year with the Colts. And everybody tends to, this is no shot at Will Roy, who did an excellent job in the Bear debate, but I think it's just because everybody calls it, it's the Tampa 2 defense. And those that understand Tampa 2, you're living in too high. You're living in the middle of the field open. Your safeties are always deep. And what I showed in that breakdown is that strong safety, and they would even do it a little bit with the free safety in Indianapolis, but the strong safety, which was Kari Willis and Andrew Sendejo, was constantly buzzing around the box, either buzzing down in a weak cover 3 match system, either being a cover 1 robber, or they're just sitting there off the line trying to overload the front in a simulated pressure or a creeper sense by having that off-ball secondary defender as the overhang that could blitz. And that's really what you saw from Brisker today. He was freaking everywhere, and that's what you want to see. You love it.
Indeed. What about the play of Treston Ebner, the running back? I was super impressed with him. He's my star of the game. I know there was a blitz pickup that he totally fouled up, but outside of that, I didn't see any mistakes from the young kid. All I saw was pure talent.
I loved what I saw from Treston Ebner, and I wasn't never against, or I was down on him as a prospect. I just wanted to wait and see, and this is what I said during the draft. Bears fans, get used to this. With this scheme, you're drafting a running back every year, just seeing if you can get some productivity or a gem late, and this is what Treston Ebner looks like. It's one thing to say, oh man, he had a really explosive run. No. Every single facet of the game he was affecting. Returns, runs, receiving. It didn't involve him too much in pass pro, and that's something you're going to see where pass pro, especially for young backs, we're not giving you that responsibility early. I actually think he may have been the one that I had an issue with, was it Tevin or somebody, where they had also ultimately passed off protection to the running back. It was that 4th and 2 play where Pettis caught a 26-yard pass. If you go back and watch that, the running back had to take on pressure, and I was like, oh, that's not great. But luckily, I think it was Simian that made the pass and hit it right. But yeah, long and short with Ebner is that I've thought that his best role would be, we're going to bash you with David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. And then when you're kind of worn down or it's just a change of pace, hey, Ebner, can you hit a home run for us? Be a relief hitter? And that's where I think you're going to see that with him. Even just that beautiful West Coast. This is where, to your point, Aldo, you're talking about people saying Luke Getsy doesn't know how to call an offense. It's early to say that. But just a beautiful traditional West Coast concept. Let's have our receiving back that's really proficient at that, used to be a receiver. Let's just have him run the little Texas route for a touchdown. That's the same thing you saw Damiere Byrd take out of the backfield last year against Green Bay when Justin Fields hit him and he ended up going for that 60-yard touchdown. Just real fundamental West Coast concepts.
Let me see if I can get a highlight going here. This is from the Chicago Bears Twitter account. It is Treston Ebner's first touchdown in the NFL. I think it's Ebner's. I think it is. Let's see. We'll play that. You hear that?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Look at him. Just take that little Texas angle route. Area. It's just it's not special, but it's what you want to see. This is, right. To some, no, not that our chat's awesome. Not that anybody here in the chat saying it. It's football Twitter, but I understand that. Look, I have concerns about the struggle for the first team offense to move. But as far as rhythm and competency and functionality out of an offensive play calling scheme, I don't have a lot to complain about with Luke Getsy today. You're seeing nothing too spectacular, but guess what? It's preseason. We expect vanilla. But does the vanilla flow well? Are you being choppy with the play calls? Nothing struck out to me in a negative way in that manner.
I love the way you analyze offensive linemen. So take me through this offensive line play for this touchdown pass.
Sure. Let's go through it nice and slow. I mean, as you can see, Barroom there is your right tackle, Tyler Carter, 69, Doug Kramer. Barroom doing a good job, not getting out leveraged there, mirroring well. I mean, 68, Kramer, and 69 looking for work. 72, 74, doing a good job so far. Now, you wish that 72 would be able to reattach. He probably will in a second here. Barroom starting to give a little bit in, but that's where you have the inside right guard help to wall it off. And then you're expecting, hey, Simian, you've got the ball for 2 or 3 seconds. Now get the ball out.
Mm-hmm. And here it is again in regular speed, or somewhat regular speed. Excellent. Very good. I hope to be able to cut to the press conferences live from Matt Nagy, and I'm sure Justin Fields will talk to the media. So if anyone in the chat room spots that they're up at the podium, I might overlook it. Please let me know, and we'll go to it right away. Tell me about, let's now kind of digest the play of Justin Fields in his first series. Obviously, you know, we know all of the considerations that we have to attach to his game today, the vanilla offense, everything new and so forth. But did you see anything that what you were impressed with, or anything that you were concerning with in terms of perhaps him getting the ball off quickly or quicker than he did last season, protecting the ball, anything like that you want to point out?
Yeah, I think the reality is football is never quite absolutely all positive or all negative. I think that there's both things that you can glean or gather from that. I'll start with the positive. I think that one of the things that Fields often showed, and it's that whole home run to check down, I'm a superstar, I want to make the big play. He often would hold the ball too long, get into troublesome sacks, put himself in a position to be stripped. You saw, in my opinion, a guy that was much more willing to take what the defense gave him. And not in a negative way that he's not aggressive. You see him taking – I mean, we're going to talk about some of the good there with the confidence to Mooney and Sharp. But you saw him willing to go, I want to hit the check down. Or, you know what, I'm not feeling comfortable. I'm just going to try to scramble out and get out of here and pick up 9 or 10 yards. That is what you want to see from him. And then you mix in – and this is the whole counterpoint to that. Well, are you asking him to tame himself and be too conservative? And what I love to see from Fields is, one – It's almost like, I put it on Twitter, it's almost like taking candy from a baby, watching Fields to Mooney. It's unreal. It's just a level of confidence that we're on the same wavelength. I trust you. I know where you're going to be. I trust my arm to put it in the spot that it needs to be. Watch this. And that is the extension of what we saw with the Tajay Sharp throw. Mm-hmm. That, as much as the Mooney throw was awesome because Moody's over here just making the DB look foolish, the Sharp throw was the best throw of the game, in my opinion. Because, look, you're deep in your goal. You have a guy coming at you. He may have been hit on it, but it was tight pressure. And he's just sitting there with full confidence saying, I trust my arm to put it where only Sharp can get it by the fingernail of an inch between the DB's hand and Sharp. And I'm going to give my guy a chance to make a play. And that's what Sharp did. That's the beauty of it is, look, I don't need you to be Superman every play. But when we need a play, do you trust yourself enough? And clearly his confidence hasn't been racked by that to say, no, I trust myself to drive one in on a 3rd and long in the tightest of windows to Tajay Sharp. And it ended up working out. It was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And Sharp is somebody to keep an eye on. I guess he had an early start to camp because of some injury issues. But the current injury issues have given him a lot of playing time over at Halisaw. And the reports have been really glowing. I know Greg Gabriel likes him a lot. He likes the fact that Sharp is a big target. So this guy now all of a sudden has moved up in terms of promise, in terms of possibilities of making the 53. Do you foresee continued growth and a connection with Justin Fields, and that Sharp could potentially make the 53 and be a serious contributor?
I mean, certainly I think that he's in contention with all those other guys, and that is part of the beauty and also the tough part about this team is that there's not a lot of starters. I mean, we hear a lot of fans go, damn, look at Ryan Poles. He drafted all these great players. It's like, yeah, well, the team wasn't exactly full of starters, so everybody's a starter when you're drafted in those positions. Mm-hmm. With that being said, the offensive receiver room is not stacked. It's Mooney and then maybe EQ because he's got the familiarity with Getsy. So, yeah, Sharp, Newsome, Fink, Webster, all of those guys are in the mix. And I think that what, Poles and Eberflus should be looking for is what's the cream that's going to rise to the top? Those are the guys that can fill out that wide receiver 4 and 5 spot, and Sharp could be in there.
Indeed. Anyone else from the wide receiver position caught your eye today with their play, or whether it was positive or negative?
Newsome obviously is the easy one to pick on. Newsome had a couple drops and muff punts and issues early, but I think that as a whole, I'm going to kind of touch on the receivers of Daz, but just the concepts in general that I'm not a huge fan of, but it's becoming fun to watch because I'm seeing it work, is you're watching Getsy involve these athletic speed guys in end arounds where, hey, we're going to get the defense flowing one way, and then all of a sudden we're going to pop that reverse or end around to a receiver. And you saw that with Equinemius St. Brown, and you saw a big one that Daz Newsome ripped off. And, Velus Jones is going to be one of those guys that can do that. So I find it very interesting to see that a guy like Daz, who maybe had some low points early, and this is kind of a sign to myself and maybe to you, Aldo, and to the fans that are so quick to jump on somebody and go, well, stock's down, cut him today. Give it some time. Not everybody comes in super hot, ready to go. And I think Daz really showed himself well as Pettis. I'm a big Pettis fan. If Tajay Sharp is the guy that Greg Gabriel likes, I'm a big Dante Pettis fan. I think that he's just had a tough break. And I love that explosion on that 20-yard pass. And I think he can provide some pop as well.
And, of course, there's a guy by the name of Darnell Mooney. He made a sensational catch. I referenced it earlier. I think I've got the replay on that. Let me pull it up, and that way you can diagnose it for us.
Sure.
Here she comes in super slow.
Yeah, it's so funny here. I mean, this is just like kind of what they call a switch route. And I mean, at that point, it becomes a jump ball. So the whole idea is you're just trying to create that mesh or rub point where we have the outside receiver cutting in on kind of a spot or a hook, and then having that outside receiver kind of run a fade. It's somewhat like a slot fade. But in that scenario, in a perfect world, you're hoping to get some defensive miscommunication where there's a nice honey hole there for him to hit. But this is why I say you're looking at the confidence of Fields and that chemistry. Yep. And he's taking a chance on Mooney and says, okay, look, right there.
I'm sorry, previous play with
no, that's okay. Because I'm just saying right there when they have that mesh point, it becomes a one-on-one, and he goes, I know my guy can beat you. I'm just going to put it up there and grab it. And that's what it did. So,
yeah, indeed. Here comes the Mooney catch again, if you want to check it out one more time. It's one of those plays you'd like to see about 1 million times, especially during the season, them replicated.
Yeah, see, so right here, you see, and I mean, if you want to even just back it up just a hair at the mesh point, right where those DBs are colliding. Sure. You can see where Mooney gets a step, and that's an immediate alert to Fields, take the shot. Right there. Look, Mooney has outside leverage. He's already stacking on top of him. Take the shot.
Yep. Excellent analysis. All right. Let's people are saying that that's a wide receiver number one play, wide receiver one play. Are you on board with going into the season as Mooney as your number one wide receiver and not looking back and questioning whether we should get another receiver?
I don't know if I'm okay with it, but I don't think I have a choice. That's what it's going to be. But I also don't think I come to conclusions off of one play. But as a guy that's been routinely saying, I don't think Mooney is a wide receiver one, I have started to see the one area I needed to see from him, which is go up there and be a ball winner. Yeah. Get me a bucket. And that's what he did there. Yeah. Got up, posted up on the DB, made him look foolish, came down with it. In the Soldier Field practice that you were at, I mean, on Jalen Johnson, that's not a scrub corner. Right. To sit there and snag a one-handed ball and come down with your feet in bounds, that is the makings of what you want to see in a wide receiver one. I've said they come in different shapes and sizes. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care if Mooney's $180. But when I need you to get me a bucket, can you do it? And that's what he's showing.
Yep, indeed. Let me check to see where the guys are at with press conferences. Sure. Nothing yet. So we'll continue our chat here. What about Khalil Herbert? We saw a quick play of him. What are you seeing out of him in this early preseason game? What does he bring to this outside zone rushing attack? It seems to me like it's perfectly suited for his talents.
Yeah, the funny part is I actually thought that Khalil Herbert would be a little bit more explosive and a little bit more of the flavor and the taste of what Luke Getsy wanted over Montgomery this year. Not because Montgomery's a bad player, just more of the scheme fit. I don't think he had a wonderful day today, but I also think I saw a few people on Twitter talking about, well, Herbert needs to be worried about Ebner. They picked Ebner. They didn't pick Herbert. We'll see. to me, what it was, though, is it wasn't so much of an issue of him or his vision. The offensive line, and this goes to the whole point of, if you wanted me to get into some of the critical areas of Justin and the offense,
Please.
It goes to the point of that offensive line did not look good today. We can talk all day and night about how Braxton Jones acquitted himself pretty well, but the reality is Schofield got blown past. The right side of the line didn't look great. You still have Mustafa at center. So it wasn't a great scenario to watch these guys run or watch Herbert break off a white zone run.
Yeah, I agree. What else regarding today's rushing attack do you want to comment on? Because I was a little dismayed by how the slow start of the rushing attack. It really wasn't until the second stringers got in, and we saw some really nice runs by players. But do we have concerns with the offensive line and their run blocking, or is this just sort of to be expected? First game preseason?
I think it's sort of to be expected. I think a lot of people think that this scheme is so easy to understand and you just pop players in that are athletic at line and you just tell the running back to hit the right hole. And I don't think it's ever that simple. It takes time for guys to understand when they need to hook, when they need to set the wall, when for a running back, does he take this hole, does he hit this cutback lane? Some of that's growing pains and you're going to learn it. But I want to be clear, some of this is my own bias. I'm not a huge fan of the wide zone scheme. It's not a problem. It works clearly.
Mm-hmm.
I like glass eaters. I like people that maul people and get displacement in the run game. And there's a certain point where this scheme is not all about that. It's about getting in front of a guy's face, walling him off, and creating little alleys for your running back to run through. And that's fine if you were going to play that way. You saw Braxton Jones and a few of these other athletic linemen do that. But the one non-negotiable part of that is even if you're doing that, we can't have you running east to west. I need you pushing your man downfield 2 or 3 yards and then running east and west. Give our guys a chance. And I don't think that you ever saw that enough. The whole idea is with these zone runs, we're opening up these alleys. Well, guess what? Those alleys are also available for the defensive guys to run through as well. So push, get displacement on your guys, and we'll see some growth.
Indeed. This comment up on the line here, Simmons, Kramer, and Dieter Iceland played really well. I agree with J2K. Mm-hmm. Those guys played really well. And I got to say that Simmons, the few times I've been out to camp this season, he's been – I don't think I've seen him with the number ones, but again, second and third stringers, he's really held his own very well, and most of the times in that interior offensive line position. This was a late round draft pick by Ryan Pace. I believe he was a 6th or 7th rounder. What do you think about Simmons? Do you think that this is a developmental player that perhaps could stick around? I'm sure you've studied him in the past and preparing for last year's draft. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he actually came out at the same time that Arlington Hambright did. And so, right. A late developmental round guy, this is the whole Ryan Pace thing, is like, yeah, we're going to take offensive linemen, but we're going to take him at the very back of the draft. And, right. Yeah, you're really investing in your front line. A developmental guy, the reality is he's already been in the league for, I think, 2 years at this point. It's everybody can constantly develop. We're not saying he's capped off on his development or his potential, but I think this goes back to the whole point is the offense and this team is not set with established starters. So this is really the time to go take your spot, take your claim on the 53. And I do agree with J2K. I thought that he did a pretty solid job as well. That was actually kind of a bigger point that I found interesting in the game is as much as we've been hearing from the coaches that we want to swap these offensive line formations in and get different permutations to see what works. Some of that is just talking, but then you actually get a realization that, for example, I like Barroom and I like Jenkins plenty. You saw those guys switch back and forth at right tackle from series to series. Barroom goes in, then Jenkins goes in, then Barroom. So I think even guys of that stature, which admittedly are a little higher than Simmons, are fighting for it. So really, I think everything is open. Yeah.
I want to let me stay on the topic of offensive linemen before I bring up a subject we touched on earlier. What about Dieter Iceland? I mean, we were super excited about him when he came over from Europe. We had him on one of our shows and talking to him. He really fired us up. He's got this mean guy streak. He's got the type of attitude. Well, I think the press conference has just started. I'm seeing it on my TV. I'm not seeing it online yet. So let me see if I can. Oh, there it is. Let's see if we can call it up here.
That done for the offense, defense, and special teams as we start to evaluate our scheme. And I think the guys did well. Just an overarching view of it. The guys operated well. There was no pre-snap penalties. Very few penalties at all. I thought the kicking game operated really nice. And really the defense played well. In the second half, did a nice job of setting some short fields. I thought we played complementary football to win the football game. We had a goal at halftime to get that done, and the guys came through with that. So that was exciting in terms of the scheme. And then really player evaluation. There's some good performances out there today, and guys can learn. The biggest thing when you play sport, any sport, you look at your individual responsibility and your individual performance, and then how can I get better? So if you had 60 plays and you played great in 58 of those, but hey, 2 plays I got to get better at something, we need to work on that this week, in every single practice. And they're going to get with the coaches, where I always say they partner together, coach, player, coach, to make our football team better. And that's truly a partnership. And to me, that's the big process we're going through here right now. Then I thought there's a lot of good foundational pieces out there. You talked about how the effort in which we play, the intensity in which we play, the taking the ball away and taking care of the football, and then being smart in situations. I thought it was good. A lot to learn from. There's a lot of situations we can learn from. But again, I thought the energy and the intensity was right. Again, we took the ball away a couple of times on the short field, and we protected the ball on offense, which is really good. So I'm excited to be able to do that. I will open it up to questions from there.
18 snaps for Justin in the first unit offense. Without seeing the film, what's your initial assessment of?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought he operated good. I thought he was, I know he had a couple of drops there. They dropped a couple of balls there, but we'll get that cleaned up. We got to be able to take those layups when he's checking the ball down and get those yards, but we'll get that cleaned up. That's not an issue. But overall, it was good. His operation was good. In and out of the huddle was good. We had a challenge on the sideline where I think he hurried up, up to get to the line so the opponent couldn't throw the challenge flag, which was good. We got the playoff and did a nice job operating there. But overall, it was a good performance.
He would have come away with points just for his own confidence.
Yeah, we're trying to score touchdowns every drive. That's what we do. So certainly we like that. But we like that he got his 18 plays in there. And,
what a question.
He got to work.
That third down deep ball that he hit, he was sharp on the sideline when he's hanging in the pocket. What does that say to you just about the way that he's able to sense that sort of pressure, but also be patient through it and still make a play?
Yeah, I think that's we saw that. That was part of practice. We've been letting him extend plays, throw the ball down the field, and I think you saw it there. He's got great instincts. He's an instinctual player, and he has to harness that and use that, and he's doing that right now.
Matt, he was sacked a couple of times. Does it make you a little bit uneasy seeing him running around in the pocket, especially with the fear of injury early in the preseason? Yeah,
we'll look at all those plays. And again, I can't rewind them in my mind right now, but we'll look at those plays, where the pressures were, how we can firm it up. Was it a situation where we need to do a better job with our pass sets or whatever that might be? But we'll get that cleaned up.
I realize it's just a preseason game, but it's the first game you've ever been the head coach. Did you have a pregame speech ready or a speech last night ready? What was it like for you on a personal level to be in charge on game day, which you never really have?
Yeah, it was exciting. It's a long time coming, and I thought it was exciting. I think the coaches did an outstanding job with the game day operation, including the coordinators being able to communicate with those guys, with Getsy, with Allen, with Hightower. They did a really phenomenal job. We were all on the same page the entire day when we were going for it, when we were punting, field goal, that whole operation. And it was prior to, first down, you're telling Getsy, hey, we're go for it on 1, 3-1 here, 3 or less. So I thought that operation was really good. And then the, moving from unit to unit, that was really good. Going from field goal team or punt team. But overall, it was great. I really enjoyed the moment. I soaked it in when we were doing the national anthem, so I think that was a cool moment for me, sitting out there and locking arms together. So that was nice.
I know you prepared for this as a staff. Was there anything you had to do as a head coach that you weren't prepared for, or you didn't realize the head coach had to worry about during the game, or an official walk up to you, ask you a question?
Yeah, I didn't realize how much you talked to the officials during the game. There's a lot of conversation going on, but those guys did great. Those guys were with us the whole week, and they educated our players, and they did a phenomenal job educating, the coaches sitting there in the position meetings. and talking to us. And really, we're just trying to learn. We're trying to play an aggressive style and play it a smart way. And the only way to do that is if you learn and educate yourself on the rules. So those guys did a phenomenal job this week.
On the topic of the operation, obviously you got to use the red challenge flag, and you used it successfully. Can you
Yeah.
just through the process of how the communication went, and then obviously it led to some good things for you.
Yeah, I mean that's just all part of it. We were working on that the whole offseason. When to throw, when not to throw, who's communicating to who, so the lines are clean up there, so you get good information. And I thought that was really good, really outstanding.
With all the things you have to watch in a game, including all the players, did anything Jaquan Brisker did today make a particular impression on you?
Yeah, the tackling, the deflecting the ball. I think he should have had maybe a takeaway or two, but he was high energy, and man, he likes to hit. So I really like that aggressive style for him, how he's playing right now.
Going back to the preparation, you told us about how you were working with Harry, all these video sessions.
Yeah.
Where you said, "Oh yeah, this paid off from that preparation." Where we
Yeah, I would say the challenge flag. The challenge flag was one of them. And then all the talking about when to go, when we're going for fourth downs, and getting that information early to Getsy so he can plan his first, second, third going into the fourth down. If you get a first down, fine, it doesn't go. But I think that's really helpful to the play caller to be able to get that information early. And then what we're doing early with Hightower also. What is our plan? Are we planning on going for it? Are we going to kick? Are we going to punt? There's that quad zone where you're in between the 40s there, where you got a lot of decisions to make. And I thought that was good on his part.
There were a few outside runs where the running backs were able to get a few inches to the outside, especially when receivers were holding up their blocks. Notably, Tajay Sharp. How does it feel for you when you see your receivers playing with such intensity in a preseason game?
Yeah, that's just all part of it. We said that with receivers and defensive backs, right? So how you operate and how you do your business on those two positions. Obviously, DBs cover, receivers catch passes, but there's a second part to that job, and that's blocking. So our receivers are part of big plays in a couple ways. The receiving part of it, but also the blocking part of it. And those guys did a nice job with that. And that's, Tyke has done a good job with those guys, working with them, finishing their blocks. And you saw some of that today, which is really good.
Does it feel good knowing that you preached intensity in your press conference when you first were hired? Seeing this level of intensity, how does it feel for you as a coach knowing that culture is being implemented?
No, it's good. But it goes back to what do you see in practice? Whatever's on the grass in practice, you're going to see it on the grass in game day. So it's not a surprise because we've seen it. We've seen them doing it. It's the same thing with, takeaways and protecting the ball and blocking and finishing. That all has to be done way before you step onto the stage. So the guys did a nice job. And again, this is a preseason game, so the guys did a nice job. It was our first time out, and we have a lot to improve on, but we like where they are.
I'm going to give you a little bit as a returner, as a runner, as a catcher. What have you learned about him in the last month or so about who he is and how he can help you?
Yeah, I think he's very competitive. He likes, when the lights come on, and you can see him compete in practice. And he's a strong runner, and he's obviously got a lot of good speed too, so he can really turn it on to get the corner or to take it, the distance. So we're excited where he is too. And, his blocking, he's doing a better job blocking, finishing runs. That's what we talked to the guys about, how we finish runs, how we finish tackles. Those matter because that's hidden yards for us in the game.
Matt, do you have any concerns about the playing surface? The NFLPA president came out and said on Twitter, at least, that the NFL needs to do better than how the grass looked.
Yeah, I know those guys are, I don't know personally, I'm new here, so I don't really know all the situations, but I know the guys are trying to do their best. And the playing surface was passed by the NFL.
Russian NFLPA or NFL. See if we can get this baby going again.
And they were sitting there like, don't you dare talk about the NFL, the Shield, in a negative manner.
Exactly.
Don't you besmirch them flus. We'll cut your feet off right now.
Let's talk about that. Those field conditions. I mean, that was deplorable. And oh wow, let's see. They've moved ahead here. Hold on a second.
We got Fields on it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Now back to. Wait a minute. What's going on here? Let's see.
was firm. It was good.
Is that their stream or mine? I think could be mine.
Maybe if we refresh the Twitter, they'll have the feeds, the Fields conference up.
Yeah.
Let's see. And there you go. Speaking to the media.
A bunch of reps with them, and I'm just really getting on the same page. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
How's the throw to Sharp on the right sideline on third down? Walk us through how that came together.
Yeah, you know, just
Is it your connection, Aldo? Are you still there?
see what he does for us this season, for sure.
The Chiefs blitz on that play too.
You said what?
The Chiefs brought some extra pressure on that play too.
Yeah, we just changed the protection before the play, so just changed it to one of our max protections.
Justin, did you get an explanation on the play that appeared to be a late hit, or did you get to talk to the refs about that?
Yeah, I talked to them, when I was, I think in the second half about it, and they said that they hit me in the shoulder, but I was, looking for like an unsportsmanlike conduct or something, like a late hit call or something like that. But I mean, I guess I just have to wait a few years, maybe 4 or 5 years before I get that one. So hopefully I get it soon.
Does that frustrate you though? That
I mean, I wish we would have got the call, of course, but I mean, I couldn't do anything about it, so I just got to move on to the next play.
Justin, without looking at the film yet, what areas do you think the first team offense can improve on based on today's game?
Just like I said before, I think we can improve at everything. Just coming up from the ball, executing better. Of course, there were some plays where we didn't execute as well as we wanted to. So just continually getting better each and every day and keep stacking these days.
Justin, as a leader of this team and seeing the wide receiver core that has been banged up, how do you feel? Senior receivers make such tough catches, whether it's Darnell Mooney on the back shoulder throw or that tough throw to Tajay Sharp on the outside.
I mean, I feel great. Like I said before, I think even though a lot of guys are hurt, I feel like we have a good amount of depth at receiver where, guys are hungry right now. And, of course, they want to make plays. So just seeing those guys go out there and make plays, it was awesome to see for sure.
Deep shot, you hit the Darnell. Can you take us through your eyes, that sequence, and what you saw in that play?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much knew exactly what was going to happen. Man coverage, just like I said before, there's a lot of man coverage being played in preseason just because teams want to evaluate their guys on defense and stuff like that. But, yeah, I just saw man, and, that defender kind of got picked a little bit. So Darnell was winning at first, and then at one point he was trying to beat him to a spot. So, I mean, I think, Darnell knew where I was going to put that ball. And, of course, I mean, I think that was a routine play for us too. So, it was of course, a great catch by him, but we've seen that many times, so it was no surprise.
I mean, that's a trust throw, but obviously you make it as a team because you have such trust.
Yeah.
How good does that feel to know going into the season that you've got that in your
Yeah, I mean, it feels great, just knowing how he's going to run the route, how he's going to work the defender and stuff like that, where he's going to end up, just the chemistry between us two. And, of course, the work put in the offseason, that just, shows right there, so.
Having Luke on the sideline with you, was that like a preference? So you were going your second year, wanting your OC down there so you could have that communication?
We didn't really talk about it. They kind of just, kind of had already planned where Janokes was going to be up in the box and he was going to be down there. So we didn't really discuss it before. And, of course, we're trying different stuff. But I like him down there.
How was it today just in terms of the communication and, getting the call in for 15 seconds?
It was good. I think it went really well. So it went good.
The offense overall, there were good moments, but to the 3 series to go punt. What do you feel like is next for you guys as a group to push past that and start having collective success?
Keep going. Keep working. That's it.
Go back to the Sharp catch. Does a play like that go a long way in building that trust like you have with Darnell, or is it just like, one more catch, we gotta put that?
I'm sorry?
Going back to the Tajay Sharp catch along the sidelines. Does a play like that go a long way towards building a trust with a wide receiver, similar to how you have that trust with Darnell?
I think, Tajay's a lot like Darnell where, he can adjust the balls, thrown at him and stuff like that. And, of course, he has that savviness off the ball. And then, of course, he's probably 2 or 3 inches bigger than Darnell too. So, he has a good range. He has great hands, like I said before, great ball skills. So, like I said before, I'm excited to see, what he can do for us this year.
Eberflus said he was pretty pleased with the operation, just in and out of the huddle, everything seems smooth. In what ways did you kind of feel that the rhythm was there, that guys weren't having any communications issues, and it all seems smooth to you?
Yeah, definitely.
Is there confidence you can build off that? Just first time, a lot of new guys in the field, first time with a new play caller, that even though you didn't get the points, that part worked
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't really know what to say that.
What's it like to see the undrafted rookie come in and get an interception and a fumble?
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about it in there. He needs to get the game ball for sure. He made plays on defense and special teams. So just seeing him go out there, ball out. Just seeing him coming to work every day. Seeing him put in the work. He's a baller, and of course he showed it out there on the field today.
There was a play where you guys were backed up in your own end zone, and it was hard to tell what happened. It looked like maybe you got hit in the leg. You had a leg injury on the right side, or
no, I'm good.
Somebody's cleat get you? Or
yeah, I think somebody's cleat just clipped me on the back.
Yeah,
I have a little scratch on the back of my leg, but other than that, it's just a scratch.
Justin, when you refer to all the things you need to improve on off of this game, how much of it is just a matter of repetition and timing? And how does that, the need for improvement, how does that compare to last year when you were learning the offense? Is it any smoother? Do you feel any better about it being just a matter of timing, repetition, as opposed to being better?
Yeah, I think, of course, I have a different mindset coming in this year. I think I'm way more comfortable just, being in the NFL this year. And of course, having played a year. But like I said before, we're just going to keep working, keep stacking days and continue to get better at, the small details each and every day.
When you go back and watch this video from your perspective, when you watch your performance, what are you going to be most eager to dial in on when you get into the film?
I'm trying to dissect every play, go back to my rules. What am I supposed to do on this play? Protection and stuff like that. So just, go through the process driven, and I'm just making sure I did my job.
Justin, you talked about the level of comfortability that you gained with your second year. Was it more being uncomfortable or being a rookie last year? I'm kind of one of those specific of what makes it easier this year. Is it the routine, or is it just the experience that you gained that makes it?
I think just the experience and just being here, I don't know. I didn't really know what to expect last year, but just, being around the guys and of course being in the league a year, you kind of just have a better idea, of what to expect. So
some of that show up though, in that sharp play that we keep talking about, just knowing how long you can hang in the pocket, the clock in your head, and maybe knowing that you can make that throw. And I don't know, is there something a term this year because of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the internal clock comes with, of course, plays, but also a route. I mean, I knew it was one-on-one the whole time, so I better not be holding on to the ball that long if I know I'm going there before the play starts one-on-one. But yeah, so I think some plays, of course, you have to have that internal clock and just have that feel of the pocket, just see where guys are coming from, and then of course if you have to escape, you have to escape. But of course there's always that internal clock going off in your head.
Did you visit with Nagy at all before the game or after the game?
Yeah, I did. I talked to him before the game.
What do you have to say to you?
We just talked about family, how he was doing, and I'm just catching up a little bit.
Curious if you feel like, did you play enough? Would you want to go back out for a little more series?
I mean, of course I always want to play, but now is about evaluating all the guys, and I'm honestly just ready for week one. So yeah, that's the time where I want to play, but of course it's really just up to coach, so it's not up to me. But yeah.
Oh, more. You had a chance to talk to Patrick before the game. You give any words of advice or?
No, we just, that was my first time meeting him in person. So it was just cool to talk to him and just kind of get to know him a little bit.
Justin, with the offensive line that is shuffling people around, how would you evaluate their performance today while you were under center?
I think they were pretty good, held up in the pocket pretty good. And of course, there were a few plays where, some guys might have got beat, but, it's going to happen. We're in the NFL at the end of the day. And just like I said, I think, all of us are going to keep working and, just continue to get better. So.
Union President Jason Shredder tweeted about the turf today, the field conditions, saying that he was very critical of it. Did you have any issues, or did you think that was up to proper standards?
I mean, it's kind of always been like that. It was definitely better than the Family Fest, earlier this week. So I'm just glad it was better than what it was earlier this week, because earlier this week wasn't the best. But the grass could definitely be better there for sure.
Are you concerned about continuing to play on it? Or?
I mean, to be honest, last year I used our home field as an advantage because I knew, how our grass was. So, I knew other teams didn't know how it was. So I kind of used it to my advantage and running and stuff like that, using the long spikes and stuff like that. But yeah. Have a good one.
Very interesting. Use it to the advantage. I'll tell you one thing, he's very diplomatic.
Well, you know what's funny is he is, but he certainly didn't hold any punches there.
Very true. Very true. It is just a note on the field, because I think we were talking about that earlier and got interrupted. But, clearly it's the responsibility we've been told over and over again by the Chicago Park District. But at a certain point, the Chicago Bears have to step in and say, this is unacceptable. Whether we have to move in and take care of it ourselves, or something has to be done, not only for the protection of the players, but for the quality of football. This is unacceptable. There have been a couple of good seasons where the turf was okay, and I understand the challenges of maintaining that turf because it's so close to the lake, and there's a lot of precipitation and dew gets caught up in the grass and stuff. But they've got 3 major concerts going on there, and that field is going to be ripped up. I don't know if anybody knows this German band called Rammstein, but they got some wild, crazy fans who are going to converge on that field, and they're not going to hesitate to just gobble up that grass and pick some up and throw it at their lead singer and stuff. I'm concerned, and the finger needs to be pointed directly at the Chicago Park District, but pick up the other hand and point it at the Chicago Bears too, because it's unacceptable.
Yeah, I think it's a not so complex, but it's got multiple layers to it. And this is the reality: is when you think about a relationship in business, this is kind of par for the course, if you will. Not to make the grass pun, but the idea here is that you've engaged in somewhat of an acrimonious battle with the Chicago Park District. They want you to stay. You say that you've been disrespected so much, so you want to go elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I'm here defending the Chicago Bears. This is clearly the Chicago Park District saying we don't respect or care about your business enough that even if it's a preseason game, we're going to make sure the grass looks good. And then you just add salt to the wound when they're trying to keep you in, and it looks like by all accounts you're going out. So it's not fair. It's not fun. I wouldn't be surprised if a few injuries happen on this field. It is a worrisome concern. But it's somewhat par for the course in understanding that they're not going to do you any favors to keep the field up when you're looking on moving out of your lease. I mean, although you've rented, I'm currently renting. Like, your landlord's not going to come and fix your busted pipe if you're over there getting ready to sign off and moving out. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. J2K knows it, Rammstein, and German Industrial. The lead singer looks so weird. Yeah, I posted a picture of him up, and it was pretty terrifying looking.
Yeah, I saw it.
All right. Anything in the press conference by Eberflus that stuck out in your mind that you'd like to comment on?
Yeah, I think the intensity question was important. I also think he's got good perspective and understands that, look, this is the preseason, but he said this, and I don't mean to make this an extension of the Dan Campbell Hard Knocks thing, but something that Flus has said, and it relates to a lot of teams that I love this style of play, is you can't play hard and live soft. It's the old Mike Tyson. Everybody wants to get up and be an all-star, but it's hard when you're sleeping on satin sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And so something that Eberflus has talked about is that we need to practice the way that we will end up playing. You cannot play to the standard we think that we need to be if we're not practicing that way. Mm-hmm. And it shows when a guy like him goes, yeah, I mean, it's par for the course. I understand this is what it's going to be because we've been doing this in practice. Mm-hmm. And I mean, in the same way, a little aside with the Lions who played yesterday, they were kicking ass up and down the line too, because that team's been hitting hard. Like need, and this is what I'm happy about. The North is supposed to be a big bruising black and blue division. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're starting to see that being built with this team and others.
Mm-hmm. By the way, you mentioned the Lions. I saw Hard Knocks yesterday, and I know you loved it because I saw
you did love it, I'm sure.
I liked it,
Okay.
but I have a couple of complaints. I'll save most of my complaints for the Dan and Aldo show on Tuesday night. But I do want to say that I was disappointed in the behavior of Deuce Staley and Aaron Glenn.
Me too.
Were they coaching or just having a personal match with one another? Can you truly expect your players to take you seriously if you're over here jostling with the defensive coordinator, the other coordinator, and talking about your personal battle to be better, as opposed to keeping your eyes on the field and coaching players up. Those two guys are outstanding coaches, but that behavior, that's their tape. Mike Zimmer got the head coaching job with the Minnesota Vikings based on the hard knocks with the Cincinnati Bengals. Nolan with the Ravens, I believe, really got a lot of acclaim because of what was shown of him behind the scenes, and all this behind the scenes stuff of Staley and Glenn going at it and joking around and so forth. I thought they really missed a good opportunity to show NFL general managers, hey, this is the type of coach that I am. And instead, what they showed was a lot of tomfoolery. That's
no. I think briefly. I know in the literal almost 5-hour marathon we did on necessities. This is the part I talked about though. Is I totally agree. Although I think this is why the word I used is it's an incredibly thin line that you're walking, because it's good to have that competitive nature. Look, we're trying to pull the best out of each side of the ball. And even though we're friends and we're teammates, I'm going against you, you're going against me. We are trying to beat each other down. All of that's good in practice until all of a sudden you're bickering, you're not watching the players are fighting and punching each other. And it's a very thin line where if it works well, I think it produces the best results. But it's very easy and a slippery slope to fall the other way where your team's undisciplined. And that may very well be where they're heading.
Yeah. And Nomad is absolutely right. These guys are competitive. They're former players. That's probably why they are good coaches, is because their perspective and the players respect that. Generally, players respect guys who have played the game a bit more than guys who haven't. My concern is this is the team. The Detroit Lions PR department, they get first crack at commenting on stuff, and you can't include that. You can't include that. They should have said to the HBO producers, all right, I get what you're doing with this sequence, but it's too long. 15, 20 seconds of it.
Yeah.
That's
it was like a minute.
Yeah. You're making my guys look in an unfair fashion. And so they should have stepped in and corrected that. I worked in the communications department protecting brands for major companies, and that's what I would have done if I was in the communications department of Detroit Lions. Protect the brand and protect my coaching staff and players and how they're being portrayed on a television show.
I have to ask you one last thing about Hard Knocks, because as Nomad said, like, former players are competitive. I don't. Did you play football at one time of your life?
Only tackle football in a tough neighborhood in Chicago, so it was with knives and guns. No, just kidding.
Did you not get pumped up listening to Dan Campbell talk?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not kidding when I'm telling you. As a former player, I longed for that type of coach where he's talking about, look, don't count the names, don't count the numbers, don't be trying to see if you're one of the 53. Just go out there, be your best, and guess what? There's going to be hard teams, but we just got to find a way to grab them by the fucking ankle and drag them out. I don't know, man. It had me ready to jump up on my couch and start doing those 40 up downs. It was wild.
My only concern with Campbell is that sometimes you get so intense into those fiery speeches and so forth, and you take your eye off the strategic ball. And, that was my complaint of Mike Ditka. And if you didn't have a Buddy Ryan who was coming up with an innovative defense that other teams had not seen before, we don't win a Super Bowl. That's the plain fact. Ditka was right in developing a great culture, a chip on your shoulder culture, and that combination with Buddy Ryan's smarts in developing that defense, that led to one of the greatest teams, if not the greatest, in NFL history. But Campbell, what is he doing these reps where he's almost having a heart attack? It's like, what are you trying to prove here? It reminded me of Nagy, throwing these long passes to kind of show up his quarterback Trubisky. It's like, you don't need to do that. Be the coach, be the CEO, oversee things. But that's just my personality. That's my take, and I shouldn't be imposing it on others. Well, only the season will tell whether his approach to the game is successful.
Well, we're getting closer to that. So
yes, indeed. Justin Fields, what did he say that caught your eye or ear, and comment on that? And then I've got a couple of other things before we call it a show.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what. But something he didn't even have to use his words for is, I think that shirt is not a mistake. That is absolutely freaking intentional. I refuse to believe otherwise. He's got a guy over there rocked up, looking like he's ready to swing down on somebody, talking about mentality.
Nice.
I think that that's intentional. I think that he is very self-aware, and that's what I appreciate about, look, I'd love to play more. I'm ready for week 1. But this is up to the coaches, understands that he's trying to call for plays. I think that you may start to see this more from him, where he had said, well, maybe I need another 4 or 5 years because they're not treating me fairly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to piss off the chat. I have to give my opinion. It's not that I don't think that there should have been a flag. In this league, we protect the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But just so we're clear, and pull it up, Aldo, if you want, or anybody, it was not helmet to helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be helmet to helmet. It's also about driving your shoulder into the head of the quarterback. His head was never what was involved with the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
He was sliding back and then went down. Now, again, the whole point is that he has declared himself as sliding down. You can just use your hands to touch him down. So I'm with all of that.
Right.
But if there's some belief that it's rough and, unnecessary roughness, he's trying to spear the opponent, I don't think it was that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he showed that obviously he's aware of that and thought he should have got the call, and it was interesting.
Yeah. I love how he talked about the play to Tajay Sharp. I've got it queued up here. And again, this is the play where immediately he calls the team up to the line of scrimmage to get another quick play off. And I put up on Twitter how agonizing it was in the past.
Well, that's Denny's menu.
Yes, exactly. That they wouldn't do the hurry up on plays that could have been challenged and reviewed. Here's the outstanding catch from a Justin Fields pass by Tajay Sharp, and then you'll see Fields rush to the line of scrimmage. Go ahead.
Tony, that is to me just like chef's kiss of beautiful throws by him.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was talking about when I said he seems so self-aware. Is the one, he's showing the self-awareness to get up and hurry up the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure maybe that's Getsy in his ear saying, hurry up, get to the ball. But regardless, there's some self-awareness there. In addition to that self-awareness he was talking about in the presser, where he knows Tajay's got a few inches on Mooney. That's why I thought I could put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Understands the tools that he's working with. And that's why I say that's such a beautiful throw. Because let's look at this in slow-mo. You can see he's got pressure bearing down him right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thrown down and is still delivering it with confidence and conviction that my arm, I trust it to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you probably don't get it in that angle, but in the live game they were showing the DB's hands are here and the ball's just barely passing by.
Right. Yeah, and this is something that the Packers would do a lot, have done a lot for years, is rush up to the line of scrimmage. I'm hoping now that we'll also see another Packer tactic used by the Chicago Bears, and that is snapping the ball when somebody jumps off sides. It's something that the Bears under Nagy rarely used, or snapping the ball when a player's trying to get off the field is what I meant. That whole thing of getting too many men on the field. That's something the Bears have never done, and that's a really easy way to pick up 5 yards on those types of mistakes. Lazen is one of many people in the chat room has been complaining about Sam Mustipher's play today. What are your thoughts on Big Sam?
I think he struggles, and I think it's not always pretty. And look, I get that we can rag on him, but I think it's fair to say Sam Mustipher is not a top 15 player at his position in the league. Well, guess who he's going against? He's going against the top. Honestly, let me put it this way: just a little rant on Chris Jones and that team of the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Jones, to me, is one of many guys on the interior defensive line that would be a Hall of Famer or up for Hall of Fame contention if he didn't play in the same era as Aaron Donald.
Mm-hmm.
That is how good Chris Jones is, which is why Chris Jones is back there sacking Justin Fields. We've just established that Sam Mustipher is not a top premier player at his position, and yet he's being put in positions to play against the stars. Now, I understand sometimes you can't help that. Guys get hurt. This isn't our preferred method. But this is the problem, is when, as a coach, we're hoping that you're putting the right guys in the right position. And to be fair, I'm not criticizing the coaching staff. I don't think they had a better position. You're going to put Doug Kramer in there against Chris Jones? No. So it's just an unfortunate scenario where Lucas Patrick's not there.
Yeah. let's see. There was a comment here that I wanted to share with you. Oh, it's Zach Sullivan, my man Zach. Evident that our coaching issues are fixed and team is on the right track. We probably only have the talent for 6 wins this year, but next year should be great. I think that's becoming the prevailing opinion among Chicago Bears fans as reality is starting to sink in that the roster still needs a lot of improvements before we can definitely compete with NFL elite, and that's going to be another season or two. Do you still hold to that belief? Because I think that you've been saying this all along. You're not like Dan Aguirre was predicting a Super Bowl. And I'm kidding.
No,
Dan. I know you didn't predict a Super Bowl.
To be fair, a lot of people would have probably hazed me earlier. I was saying before. Really, it happened before we saw like Lucas Patrick go out and Harry go out, and this was back when right after the draft, and this is before you start hearing reports about how Jalen Hurts looks with AJ Brown and things of that sort. I had said the ceiling would have been 11 wins, and that means everything is going right. I don't think that everything. That's the NFL. Nothing always goes 100% correct. So I said if you're trying to hedge your bets, it's 11 at the top end. That's the ceiling. The basement is 7, and the middle ground is 9. And I mean, I still tend to believe that if I could put one thing out to the chat, though, and I know this isn't a popular take, and I'm not saying that they want to tank or that we should tank, but in many ways, I tend to think – I'll give you a perfect example. We talked about the Lions. I think we can expand this to the Jaguars, to the Jets. In many ways, and those teams actually have a little less of an excuse because they've spent so much money in Jacksonville and they've spent a ton of money in draft assets in New York. But in many ways, the win total this year doesn't matter. You really just need to feel like going into year 3, we know that Justin Fields is the guy, and we can move forward by building it around him. And I tend to, like, if you want to stick me to a win total, I'm going to stick with that 7 with, some injuries and things don't go quite the right way, 9 being that middle ground, and then 11 being the top. But I think at the end of the day, the wins don't matter as much as the actual film and the tape and seeing what we're seeing on the field this year.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. Let's see what we've got. I asked for people if they've got questions for you. So I will start with Ravi. He says 10 wins. Is it possible?
Yeah, I mean, anything is possible. I mean, Aaron Rodgers ends up, cracking his kneecap and I don't know, the NFC folds in half. Yeah, I think the Bears could win 10, but I will tell you as kind of I'm not that everything has to be negative or critical, but part of what I would use to expand on Ravi's question here is that my real concerns for him today, and it's a preseason game. It's one little sample size, but I worry a little bit about Justin Fields and his health. He's a strong kid. He'll be fine, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be an easy ran offense. I don't think everything's going to be easily schemed up and pressure's going to hold back and he'll have all the time in the world. I think that the Chiefs aren't even an all-star defense. I wouldn't consider them to be a top 5 defense. And they kind of ran roughshod on the Bears offense today, to be quite frank. And I know that guys are out. I understand all that. But this is your first look of what it looks like, and it didn't look super comfortable. Now, fans, I hope you'll take this, and Chad, I hope you'll take this as a positive, but it goes both ways. It cuts both ways. One of the areas that I'm critical of Justin Fields on, it's just funny because it comes with that touchdown, check-down mentality. Justin Fields, for some reason, loves the hard stuff. Like, he's always about, let me just show you and show off and throw a ball in here. And it's the 1% throws that he always makes.
Yeah.
And then it tends to be the easier stuff where I'm like, why did that work? And it's not always his fault. Like, Herbert dropped the ball.
Right.
Timing may be a little off, but damn, I want you to be able to take advantage of the easy stuff and then hit the home runs that are the hard stuff. But I worry a little bit about that. I want to see the floor come up. I know the ceiling's there, but can we find more consistency at the ceiling while also bringing the floor up? And if that's what you get at the end of the season, that's a win for me.
My man Laz wants your take on number 91, Dominique Robinson, who had a sack today.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's start with the sack. The sack is good, and I'll take a sack any day of the week. But that was whether it's one of two things, and I told this to Greg Gabriel on Twitter. Either it's a blown pass protection, and he's got a one-on-one with the running back, which the good news is if you have a D-end on a running back at the pro level, that D-end should make light work of the running back every time. The good news, he did that and got a sack. So sure, if it's a blown protection, he's taking advantage of it. The other good news about it is if it's not, then Alan Williams schemed it up perfectly where he got that one-on-one matchup where they had to respect an overloaded front. It got him one-on-one with a running back, and that's how we get our sack. I don't care how it happened. Sure. At the end of the day, it's a sack, and it's important in regards to Robinson's play. I think what was so impressive, and we've talked about this, I mean, Aldo, I think you can – well, the good news is it's all a video on demand. We can pull it up. But I had said on Barfly Tailgate Show that Brisker was my favorite pick. Second favorite in this draft was Dominic Robinson. He's a guy that has the length, has the flash plays of burst and explosion off the ball. Mm-hmm. I think that he showed today that he was a constant nuisance. And as much as we all want sacks, and those are important, don't get me wrong, many times pressure is the more telling stat. And so when I talk about being a nuisance, that is creating pressure, making sure, and this is really the best way I would put it. I think if you are playing, if you're calling plays for that offense today for the Chiefs, you have to at least account for him. Not that, hey, we need to put 3 guys on him because he's Aaron Donald, he's just wrecking shop. But I certainly can't just disregard him like he's just a nobody because he's always in the way. He had a play where he rushed upfield and had to have the fullback come in and seal him off. And so I think that all of that is good. If I have to be critical in one area, and this is okay, he just switched positions a couple years ago. When he gets stalled off or gets stopped, Tony, the pod boss, who's been in the chat before, had said he looks like he's loafing. I don't even know if it's so much loafing but this is the problem. When he gets stalled, he doesn't know what to do next.
Yes.
And that's not new for him. There are plenty of edges that come into the NFL without a rush plan. Mm-hmm. But the best ones, the guys that you hear all the time getting sacks and being successful, are the ones that have a rush plan where, look, I'm going to come in, I'm going to try to rip. If they wall that off, then I'm going to try to spin. And if they do that, then I'm going to try to duck and do a ghost move. Have multiple moves to stay creative and stay active, not just go, well, damn, they beat my initial move, so I guess I'll wait and see if I can hold contain. That was the issue with him today.
Yeah, that is a fantastic point you just made there. I truly believe, let's not forget, he went into quarterback and went into college playing quarterback, right? Yep. And then wide receiver. So his inexperience is a mile long, but nonetheless, this guy's got some talent. He's got some speed. Here's that sack, by the way, that he was credited. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, and you see it here, and that's where I'm saying, to me, it looks like a blown pass protection call. Mm-hmm. It looks like they may be sliding the opposite way and just not accounting for Robinson. Because when I talk about overloading the front, you don't have any overhang defenders like a secondary guy or a nickel coming off the edge. Mm-hmm. Everything's just very vanilla. Look, it's 4 down, even front, 2 backers. You're in nickel. The nickel's off and out, so he's not blitzing. So when you see Robinson coming off there, what that indicates to me is that there's just a mental error on the offensive line where they're leaving him one-on-one with a back. And that's, I guess, if you want to say, like, the best scenario is, wow, we get to compliment Allen Williams and Robinson. Mm-hmm. But this is what I was saying too. If the scenarios, well, the offense screwed up, well, I'm still happy that Robinson took advantage of it. I'm not going to give the guy a bad grade for that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Some more questions. Let's go to Eric. Where do you rank the offensive tackles at this point? And wasn't it amazing that ESPN put out an article saying the Bears were ranked the 11th best offensive line? I saw the title. I didn't read the headline. Didn't read the story itself. But if you did, I'd love for you to comment on what they said and also address Eric's question, please.
I didn't read it, but I saw in passing that they had him. I think it wasn't 32. I think they had him higher.
11th.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Wow.
I don't know. I mean, the media is one week they're high on the Bears, the next they're not.
How about it?
I don't mean to go so deep here, but Eric, I want to be deep in my analysis.
Please.
Braxton Jones, I think. Let me be clear. I think he needed the experience, needed the reps. I'm glad we got to see it against the Chiefs' first team D. Mm-hmm. I actually think, as much as I was critical in one way, I made a little joke like, hey, Braxton, let's not get walked into Justin Fields' lap. I'm picking fun at him. I also think that he really did acquit himself pretty well. He's a good athlete, moves well in space on an island, mirrors well. That mirroring is the whole idea. When you heard me talk about Barroom, it's rule of 3, keeping yourself between the quarterback and your defender. And so he did mirror well. And I guess let me touch on an issue too. I had actually thought that his strength was pass blocking, and I questioned his run blocking. I think that he is, we've talked about how well-spoken he is. Mm-hmm. I think you could see some of that intelligence on the field, and they did a good job highlighting it, where it was a zone play to the left, and they showed him actively realizing and IDing his run blocking assignment, where, holy crap, this guy's coming from the back. I need to disengage and reattach to a new defender. That is all the good stuff that you want to see. He's not an ass kicker. Like, that's what I told you. It's a preference thing. I would love him to just be flat backing defenders. And that's not who he is. That's okay. What I want doesn't mean I have to get that. I did need to see some of that in the run game, though, and I did see it. The interesting or critical part, and it's not some, oh my goodness, this is the world ender for him, is as a guy who's so special at pass blocking, I saw him not anchor well enough, didn't really sit his butt down. And it's not, like I said, it's not the end of the world. You see this with a lot of tackles, but the good edge rushers, they convert speed to power in an instant. And that's how they're able to kind of get into your chest and start pushing you back before you can really sit and anchor yourself. And you saw that happen a few times with Braxton today, where the edge rusher would convert that speed to power, and then he wouldn't anchor in time. And all of a sudden he's on his skates as he's being pushed back. So that's one of the tackles. I real briefly on Barroom and Jenkins. I had talked about that earlier. I thought it was interesting that many thought Barroom was either ahead or they were in different positions. It looks like Barroom and Jenkins are competing for right tackle regardless. Braxton's got the left. I think Reef is a guy that was brought in. Sure, he can play, but I actually think they hope that he's the basement level. He is the bottom floor. If nothing else goes well, we have this guy and we know what he is, but we're hoping that a Barroom or a Jenkins or somebody can rise above that. I thought Jenkins acquitted himself well today. It wasn't perfect. I know J2K was there earlier saying that Jenkins had a bad day. I don't think every rep was beautiful, but if you actually go back and watch some of those run plays, he's inflicting his punishment and delivering his will into people, burying guys on the backside of these zone plays. And I think his issue remains, and we'll see if he can speed that up, but he does struggle with speed rushers on the edge. This was something that we saw with Joseph Osai at Texas in the Oklahoma State game, what you saw with DJ Wanham last year, Zadarius Smith. So I think he needs to be better at that. And then I thought Barroom was steady Eddie Barroom. Good play, nothing bad coming from him.
Bellissimo has some thoughts. He said that Braxton just overset a couple of times, and Barroom was great at both left and right tackle. I don't know about great, but yeah, I like Jordan's depiction a little better. That he was good.
I call him steady Eddie's, like just set and forget.
Yeah,
and that's what we talked about with Barroom. That's okay. If one of the guys on your five, I just don't worry about. I go to bed sleeping easy at night. That works for me. Yeah, I saw Bellissimo was saying Jenkins was generally bad in pass pro.
That's the one.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, but Bear and I just may have different opinions on what a good pass pro set is. Yes, in a perfect world, I'd like him to be snatching every defender and laying on them, and they're never coming close to my quarterback. And he had plenty of areas where the rusher was getting close, and that's a problem. But I also didn't see him, here's a great example. He also wasn't Lachavius Pig Simmons versus Tampa Bay last year, where you've got Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaquille Barrett coming off the edge every time and beating him in 2.3 seconds. It wasn't that either.
Questions about special teams. Taurine and Ravi were very impressed with the new punter and those punts he got off. Overall thoughts on special teams play.
This is the funniest one because I've actually given Ryan Poles a little bit of shit that his argument was, I just don't want to have to get into a negotiation battle over a punter. And I was like, well, get into a negotiation battle over a punter and go get a skill position or something.
Yeah,
I have to give him credit. It's funny because it's one game, but Trenton Gill looks like, I don't want to say he's the next best punter, but it's the whole steady Eddie, set and forget. I've watched a game of him and gone, yeah, the punter's fine. Like, we know, guess what? If the offense doesn't move the ball, we have a good punter to put him back. And to give you a little bit more context and deeper analysis on that, it's one thing to punt the ball as far as you can. And that was the whole Matt Ariza thing. Everybody loves seeing a guy boot the ball 75 yards. And this is why I didn't have him as my number one punter. Directional punting matters. And this is what you saw with Trenton Gill constantly. Pinning guys back, getting backspin on the punts. There was one that has some beautiful backspin, and Sanborn didn't play it right, and it ended up bouncing into the end zone. But I mean, it's all of those punts looked like that, where they were these coffin corner backspin punts where he's directionally pinning the offense that's going to be taking over deep into their territory, and I love that.
Not sure I agree with Ravi here, but maybe we'll find out if Gill has more punting power than Ariza, the highly touted punter that came out in the draft. What about Jack Sanborn? You just mentioned him. J-Rock says that he's a future MLB. My problem with Sanborn is that he would have been a starter in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. I think that he is probably going to have some value, but it's primarily special teams and an emergency linebacker duty. Your thoughts?
Well, you know what's funny is Bears fans, I'm going to placate you a little bit because you should all know this name is he's Nick Kwiatkowski. And that's not a bad thing. I like Nick Kwiatkowski.
Right.
Sanborn's not a Mike. He can be in the old, like you're saying, the old days. He'd be perfect as that guy that has 15 to 20% of the snaps as your starting Sam if you need it. He's already shown more than I thought Matt Adams did today. Now, he was going against lesser competition. He was coming in later in the game. But this is another guy, when you heard me talking, Hunter Hillmeyer, another good one, Ravi. A perfect example I was talking about earlier with Ebner is that he made impact in all aspects or phases of the game. Sanborn did the same thing, where I guess he's not catching and running the ball, but what can I ask from a defensive player? He was on special teams, blew up a kickoff return, had a good tackle on punt, and then, ultimately, if you're a defensive player, can you be a sure tackler and can you fit the run? And actually, he's making plays in the pass game as well. He has a magnet or a nose for the ball, picked up the fumble recovery, was in the trash, there to get it, aware enough to pick it up. His interception, if there's a way to pull that up, I mean, maybe we'll do that on Bare Necessities this week, but his coverage on the interception was freaking gorgeous. And a guy that I was excited about, who I have plenty to talk about with Charles Snowden, didn't have the role I thought he would today, but he happened to be the guy that got the pressure off. And Sanborn was able to capitalize on it by being in the hip pocket and riding that low shoulder of the receiver. He was just playing a hook zone and then snagged the interception. So as far as a guy that today, I mean, I know he's like the Chicago Bears player of the game on the little broadcast. I have a hard time arguing with it because the guy made impact plays and everywhere. I think he's a Sam, but that whole Kwiatkowski Hillenmeyer thing is you don't mind having that guy if a guy like Morrow or Smith were to go down and you needed him to fill in for a couple games.
Yeah. I just going back to my old TV producing days, I wish what they would do with these player of the game things is just give out more than one, because a number of players should have gotten recognition, whether they want to do offense, defense, and special teams, or just top 5 players or something like that. I hate the fact that other players were overlooked because it's I particularly now in these early preseason games, there's just so many new names for the casual fan who tuned into the game. And by highlighting the play of some of these guys, you can make these casual fans much more familiar and knowledgeable about who some of these guys are and the roster battles that they're facing and stuff. I think preseason games, now here I am going on my soapbox.
No, that's okay.
I think preseason games should be telecast totally different than regular season games, in that there should not be, if I'm producing / directing the Chicago Bears feed for a preseason game, I'm not ever going to even show the sideline of the opposing team other than in the open. I am going to scour the sideline of the Chicago Bears and point out various players and say, this guy is in a roster battle with that guy. And I might even show some clips from what's going on at Hallis Hall and provide backstories on some of these players so that, again, the fans can really get revved up about these camp battles that I think are so often underreported and under scrutinized by the media in Chicago. So anyway, just my thoughts on that. All right, let's see what else we got in terms of questions. Earl Martin says that he is with Dan. Why not the Bears in the Super Bowl? I love it.
I certainly wouldn't be upset. I hope that they overachieve.
Absolutely, that's for sure. And then J2K says, what about the play of Lamar Jackson, Devontae Harris, Gates, and Simian? Let's talk about all 4 of those players. Why don't we start with Lamar Jackson? And that's, of course, not that Lamar Jackson, the cornerback, who I thought played fairly well.
Well, and I guess I can drop a little bit of hints here. And if some people like these topics, just let me know and we'll talk about them deeper on Bare Necessities this week. But one of the things that I'll kind of hint towards, at least with these DBs, is our GM is Ryan Poles, came from the Kansas City Chiefs. For those that don't watch Kansas City Chiefs or understand the way that team is built, their defensive secondary, and specifically at corner, has been built upon a foundation of we just kind of plug guys in and see if some of them can be serviceable. And serviceable is just, hey, I don't need you to be a lockdown, but just don't give up free plays on touchdowns. And, I mean, that's where a guy like Charvarius Ward came up and just got paid in San Francisco, L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, they picked up DeAndre Baker and just cut him recently. That's the way that team was built. And I think you've seen a lot of that show up in Chicago, where we're just going to throw a bunch of guys and see if any of them stick. And that's Lamar Jackson, Devontae Harris, Bo Pete Keys, Michael Joseph, all these different guys. And so specifically for Lamar, I thought that Lamar played well today. If I had a problem, I didn't think that he was near the ball enough. What I mean by that is it always felt like he was a second late. And some of that's just good timing, good concept by Andy Reid and the Chiefs. But you saw a lot of plays where the guy's catching a curl and then it's a second later, Lamar Jackson's there. That applies to Harris even. Gates, on the other hand, Gates, as a guy that just came in from the USFL, I want to give him a little credit that he's warmer probably than some of these other players. He's been in more competitive ball as of late. But still, he came in just a few days ago, and I thought he'd made more than enough of an impact, at least being a tackling guy. Was always around the ball, making enough tackles. And then as far as J2K, Simian, this is something I find a little interesting is in many ways, Simian looked, I have to be frank, Simian looked better than Justin Fields today. Not it with the highs, never had any of those high plays like Justin Fields did, but fundamentally looked like he understood the offense more and understood, okay, I've got a smash concept here. I likely understand what the defense is playing. I'm going to hit Daz on the little slot fade here. I'm going to hit this guy. And the whole point is it doesn't mean that Simian is better than Fields. But what I think is this is what we talk about, and it's good for context to remember that Justin Fields is still learning and still trying to ingratiate himself into this scheme where when Trevor Simian was first brought in, he talked about the reason I wanted to come here is, yes, I've played at Northwestern. Yes, this is where I like to be, but I know this offense like the back of my hand back to my time in Denver where I was drafted. So I say this to say one final thing. I think Trevor Simian is the perfect backup for a guy like Fields. Nick Foles, for example, whether he was a good player or not, I don't think in many ways he's a little bit of a threatening figure because Nick Foles can present magic to you at any moment if he gets a chance to play. Trevor Simian is never going to threaten Justin Fields for his job, but God forbid Justin Fields were to get hurt with anything. You know that you have a very functional, competent backup that understands the scheme like the back of his hand and can operate it in a functional fashion.
Yeah, and I will caution everyone in the chat room, Fields didn't get the protection Simian got. We
No, he didn't.
So, we have to keep that in mind. And you're absolutely right. Trevor knows this offense much better than Justin Fields, in my opinion. And a lot of that just has to do with the veteran know-how. But
the time spent in it.
Yeah, exactly. Has there been any word yet on how much the starters will play next Thursday?
I don't think that there's any talk about it, but I guess let me talk about this. I'd love your opinion on Aldo. I was very pleased with how long they let Justin Fields and the starters go today.
Me too.
And I know there's a lot of hyperbole right now about look what happened to Zach Wilson and he tore his meniscus, and that's why you should never play your guys. On a personal level, I take a different stance to that. I think you've seen it in practice with a guy like Lucas Patrick. You can get practice. You can get injured anywhere in practice, in a game, in OTAs.
At home.
I mean, Minka Fitzpatrick was riding his bike and ended up on the PUP before training camp. So it can happen anywhere. I just feel like the reps and the experience is invaluable. So if injuries are going to happen at any time, sure, don't push the limit and say, look, let's have you go for a QB run every single time, Justin. But I don't think there's any problem with having him play a quarter and a half throughout the entire preseason in hopes of getting that experience for week one.
Totally agree. And, with that play with Zach Wilson, he made the mistake. He's trying to do a juke and run back towards the middle of the field. Yep. He should have just gone out of bounds. Yep. I love the competitiveness, but you've got to play the game smart. This is a preseason game. Trying to pick up a few extra yards in a preseason game is a recipe for disaster. So it's a torn meniscus. I had not heard that, Jordan.
Yes, it's a bone bruise in the knee. Funny enough, that's what Andy Dalton had last year.
Okay.
Bone bruise in the knee and then a meniscus tear, and they're going to go in and do some arthroscopic surgery to fix or handle that, try to expedite the recovery on the meniscus. And the hope is that he'll be out at best 2 to 4 weeks. So I would say by the week 4 mark, I would imagine he's back to full health. They really dodged a bullet there. I'm happy for them.
Would love for you to address J2K's observation here that we had 3 safeties on the field, a lot of in the beginning of the game, and it was Jackson, Brisker, and DHC. I did notice that too, and DHC playing a bit of that slot. Do you think that had to do with Kyler Gordon's injury, or you think they are seriously looking at DHC playing some slot?
Oh, it's a little bit of all of them. So I think in some ways Gordon's not there. I don't know how comfortable they feel with Tavon Young. Tavon Young's had an extensive injury history. Some of it's, though, the scheme, and I love this. The NFL nowadays, we're relating to – we've got Travis Kelce in the slot, and we're putting, Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Juju Smith-Schuster, these bigger power slots. I can't put Thomas Graham if he was healthy or Tavon Young. They're too small for those guys. You know who fits perfectly is a more athletic linebacker, but a less athletic and bigger corner. That's a safety. So we put the safety there in big nickel, bring him down to the slot. He's there to not only cover these bigger power slots, but he's able to fit the run because he's got more size than a Tavon Young or a Thomas Graham. And that's what's really allowed you to have these safeties. And what I love about the Bears is that they truly do have three safeties that are so versatile where, sure, I guess maybe Eddie can't play strong safety or down in the box, but Brisker really can move over to free safety. He's got the range and he's comfortable coming down or moving back. And the DHC can play both as well. So at least on those three safeties, sure, Eddie's probably your deep center fielder, free safety, weak side. But Brisker and DHC can alternate between moving down into the box, into the slot, and back halves.
Incredible. We've got a number of other questions, but what I'm going to ask everybody is bring those questions tomorrow morning to the Barfly Tailgate Show. It's a 9 a.m. Central, so that's 7 a.m. for Jordan. Look how hard Jordan works for us.
Yeah, I'll be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's okay.
Oh, my goodness. 10 a.m. Eastern. Save those questions. It'll be Jordan. It'll be Aaron Current. I'm assuming most of the other guys will be there, and it's going to be fun. It'll give a game like today's game really lends itself to watching the tape. I mean, really lends itself because there are so many players to evaluate, different names. It's, almost double the amount of guys you would be evaluating in a regular season game. And you want to see technique. You want to see all these things that Jordan is so good at deciphering and commenting on. So the Barfly Tailgate Show is going to be great. Aaron Current, the winner of our first Bear debate. No, I'm not. I'm not proclaiming him a winner. It was a great show.
It was good.
And we have our next one scheduled for Monday night. I'm about ready to lock up the guests for that debate show, but that'll be Monday night. So on Sunday, you've got the Barfly Tailgate Show. On Monday morning, it'll be Greg Gabriel and myself. We'll get Greg's thoughts on the preseason and what might be ahead. And then Monday night, it will be the second episode of the Bear Debate. And that first one was great. Mike, thanks to Ill Will and Aaron Current for being guests. Jordan, what are your final thoughts before we bid adieu?
Yeah, I think that although I appreciate you doing this, I think there's been a real good summation of what we saw today. I think Bears fans should be excited. I'm not ready to tell you that we're winning a Super Bowl or anything, but it's a new era, and I think that there's a lot of excitement in the philosophy, the scheme, having some functionality and competence on offensive play calling. Justin Fields clearly looks like his timing is better, and he understands the offense and the NFL a little better with its game speed. And then you've got some real good looks at what this defense is going to look like. And if that's one thing, although that you think you've heard me talk about time and time again, I may be down on the Bears occasionally, but the one thing that I feel with all the conviction in my bones is that what this defense, this philosophy, this scheme looks like. Because for all the Bears fans, I know that our chat's not full of casuals. But there's some casuals out there that believe this is the Monty Kiffin, Lovie Smith, early 2000s D, and it's not. You've seen this defense evolve, and where many people think it's antiquated, you can look back at Eberflus's time with the Colts and see how effective it was against modern NFL offenses. And I'll give you a little cheat sheet. You don't have to do the research yourself. Just go tune into episode 2 of Bear Necessities. I did 7 to 8 games of film breakdown on it and talking about how he runs it. But you're seeing it now where this philosophy, this HITS philosophy, this MICE philosophy that people don't hear about the MICE, but that's another acronym he uses to motivate and elevate. Talk about that later. But you really are seeing this now where you've got defensive players that are flying to the ball, trying to punch the ball out, playing discipline, filling gaps well, having consistent fresh faces on the rush. I think there's a lot of excitement in the air. And if for nothing else, football's back and we should be excited. We have this until February. So thank you.
You nailed it. Great job as always, Jordan. We'll see you tomorrow morning on the Barfly Tailgate Show. And for all of you who have joined us live, really appreciate you interacting with us and sharing your thoughts. And let your friends know if you like this episode. Let your friends know, because it will be archived here on our YouTube channel, and we'll also post it on our audio podcast feed. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you all soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bear down.